welcome to another quarantine podcast.
You thought
we have-
there was an end to the quarantine podcast, but no, we had to throw our hat in the ring.
It's a whole new genre now, but we are special because we've decided to make it on something that no one thought to make a podcast about.
Yeah. Yes, that is very true.
We are dominating the podcast market for Meet the Robinsons fanfiction, which, by the way, is what it's about.
Yes.
My intro skills are still rusty.
It's all right. Yes, don't worry about it. So yeah, so everybody, welcome to our podcast. I believe
Also,
the working title.
I'm so sorry.
And probably the actual title. Hopefully, we'll see in the editing process. Maybe it'll be a different title, but currently the podcast is called Stranger Than Fanfiction, and it is as of this taping, the only podcast about fanfiction that is centered around the Meet the Robinsons franchise.
I would call it a
franchise?
Like, there's a book. There's
yes.
a video game.
Yes.
And there's a movie.
Yes.
And there was like an almost sequel.
Yes.
There's a cult following, and Elioli make a ton of fan art for it. So I think that's enough.
Right.
We qualify.
Yeah. Yes, so
anyway.
It's a franchise in a very tiny one. It's a small fish in the pond, but it's good
like a
fish.
It's a happy little fish.
Yeah,
It doesn't need to be big.
No, it just, it makes its own impression in its own way. So
and we are qualified to make this podcast, by the way, because we have dedicated an unimaginable amount of time thinking about Meet the Robinsons, in a very scientific way.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, do we want to talk more about like our qualifications or?
I think just like a little brief thing.
Sure. Okay, so I have been. Oh, we should introduce ourselves.
Yeah, this is where I was leading to.
That would be a good thing to do. Hey, here's just some two randos talking
about the voices
things
inside of your head telling you to read.
I have my moments. So my name is Alyssa, but my screen name is TheRationalDove. Sometimes I go by Dove. But that's what you can find me most places. That's my name.
Yeah. You authored the seminal Meet the Robinsons work, Revisited. I'm just gonna put that in there for next year.
Oh, thank you for promoting me. I appreciate it.
But also, I feel like that's like one of the main reasons why the all three people who are listening would know you.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
By the by.
Yeah.
By the by, like, my friend is famous.
Yeah, so.
But I'm also not kidding.
No, I know you're not. Yeah, so if you've been reading MTR fanfiction within the past 4 years, I guess, you probably have read Revisited, I would guess. It's gotten pretty popular, if I do say so myself. Not to like brag or anything, but yeah. So that's probably what you know me by, if you know me. But I've been in the fanfiction world for much longer than that. I've actually.
Yeah, this is not your first rodeo.
No, it is definitely not my first rodeo, and probably not my last either.
There's like a dark past. The way you said
that. Yeah, I guess you could say I have a dark past. But yeah, I've been posting fanfiction semi-regularly since 2008, when I was a youngin'.
Nice. I've been posting and then deleting fanfiction since around the same time.
I
but most of it's deleted.
I don't think I've actually ever deleted a fanfic. I don't think I've ever done it. I
That
think
is so brave.
no, maybe I just don't have any shame.
No,
I
but
don't know.
I have this like respect. You stand by your work. It's
I
great.
do. It's funny. Ever since I started this project, it's really made deletion a weird mode for me. Uh, but that's probably a topic for a different time. But
Oh yeah, and by this project, she means obsessively reading every single Meet the Robinsons fanfiction, and even using the Wayback Time Machine
yes,
to read all
look,
of them.
the internet
Your
I have.
dedication is amazing, because before you started, I was literally one of the only ones who like read all MTR fanfic. Well, like most of it that I could stand,
Yes.
and would still talk about MTR. And then you started reading it, so you became the expert in all fan fiction, and now I'm the expert in like all of the decent ones.
Yes. Yeah, I
Because I just don't
decided.
bother to read
I guess we should
all of
also
them.
clarify too that although we have claimed this is a quarantine podcast, we've actually been tossing around the idea of this thing for quite a while now. So it is the quarantine did not.
It's like, oh my
Was
god,
not
it's
the
almost a
birthplace
year.
of it.
Is it a year? Oh my god, because we
It might have
started
been, yeah.
talking about it in April last year.
Yeah.
I remember because
So
we were talking and I was like wandering around the garden.
yeah, so
And you were
this
like,
has
I can't
been a
hear you.
thing, and then now that we're both stuck at home,
I'm not
we're
suited for podcasts. I go off on weird tangents. But anyways, you are renowned fanfic author, Meet the Robinsons fanfiction historian, academic, local bird. Is your icon is the bird?
Yes, yes, I am the pigeon that is at the window. If there are pigeons near your window, that is me.
Yeah, Professor Alyssa at your service, and also at your bird feeder. Either one.
Yes, I'm just imagining like a pigeon with like I don't know like spectacles on, and there's a book near the pigeon, and they're reading. That's me.
Yeah, I can totally
But
picture
yeah,
that.
that's me. And so yeah, and that's kind of my experience with fan fiction. I've been doing it for a long time, and I have a lot of things to say about it, and
Yeah.
especially MCR fan fiction in general, because I've read, how many have I
Yeah, we're
read so
very
far?
opinionated.
I think like over 200 of them. It's a lot. I've read a lot of them.
I've read a lot of them, but I can't remember any of them because I didn't take notes. And actually, when I
I
initially read them, I was like 10, 12.
Enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Yeah, so I run one of 3 living MTR blogs.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like I have carried the torch from Morgan, who ran That Guy in the Bowler Hat. And
Yes.
so it's called The Robinson Way of Life. Fun fact, it was named after a Simpsons blog called The Simpsons Way of Life.
I didn't know that, but
And then
that's really
somebody else
funny.
made the Par Way of Life inspired by my blog. It's so cute. Anyway, so it's a Meet the Robinsons blog that's mostly, I only post incorrect quotes now because that's what started getting notes, but also it's like the funnest thing to make. So it was like a win-win. Made it. Yeah, so they call me Irene because there's no room for 2 Irenes in this town. It doesn't make sense. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad that I'm
I've been
also not
drafting
named
a lot
Irene.
of.
That would be very awkward. Like, oh no.
If
One of us
there's
would have to
another
leave.
Irene, I gotta shoot them. That's just what I gotta do.
I get you.
There will be like a tear in my eye as I do it. Anyway, so I've been in the process of like trying to write MTR fanfiction for so long, but it never gets done because I'm a perfectionist. And like, I tried to do like too many things.
Yeah, it's it can be rough. I think like finishing a project is like one of the hardest things to do. So it's definitely a
Right?
load. Yeah, yeah. I
There's
actually
like
I
6,000
definitely
MTR
know.
fanfic ideas just like floating around,
Oh yeah.
and
You
I
definitely
at
have
this
some
point
very
I
interesting
don't.
ideas.
Oh, thank you. At this point, I
Uh-huh.
don't know for sure if it's ever going to be published because like at some point I'm going to have to like focus on school.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I've been reading MTR fanfic for like so long since the movie came out intermittently, and then I've done like fan art in the past. Now my fan art is just memes, which is great. I'm sharpening my Photoshop skills via MTR memes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I very much appreciate the thumbnail you made for this podcast. It's just,
Oh my god, so much thought went into that, but
yeah,
also
I
no
can
thought at
tell the
all.
effort is totally there and it looks great. I'm so happy with it.
Yeah,
So
thank
yeah,
you.
shout outs to your graphic design. It's very great.
Thank you.
But yeah,
I'm very proud.
and what's really funny is that like I think we were probably reading MTR fanfic like back in
Yes.
its heyday around the same time.
Yeah,
And we might
definitely.
have even like seen each other, I guess, quote
I'm sure we
unquote.
have. It's like the digital version of passing each other in the hallway.
Yeah, basically. But we only really started like talking recently, I guess, within the last
Yeah.
couple years. So it's really funny about how that happens, right? like like I think you and
Yeah.
I were both at some point in the fanfiction.net or like forums. I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Oh
sure.
god, the forums.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we were both there at
I
different
remember I
points.
didn't know what slash meant. I thought it just meant two characters in a story.
Oh, no.
So I was like, no one writes about Spike and Dimitri. They should write about those two. So, but I formatted it in the slash format, in like the ship format, and some people were like, um, you know what? That's not my cup of tea. Like you can like that, but that's not my thing. And I'm like, dude, I just meant like as brothers, as brothers. And I felt like I was
Oh,
like yelling at them. No, that's not what I meant.
that's pretty
Anyway, I
awkward.
quickly learned. This was learning the tough way. I learned on the streets.
Oh my lord. That's rough. So yeah, so uh, at some point I think we'll probably talk more. Oh yeah, I guess we should clarify in case it wasn't painfully obvious, but we will probably only be talking about fan fiction related to Meet the Robinsons, and we won't be talking about anything else, like any other
Yeah,
fandoms,
that's true.
unless it's
We
a
did worry that the
crossover.
title would be confusing, but this is a podcast that's very specifically just about Meet the Robinsons fan fiction.
Yes. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a special episode where we talk about non-MTR fanfic.
Like, I'm willing to compare it to other fanfic.
Yeah.
I think that's valid within the realm of our premise.
Yeah, and
But,
I've been reading,
you
I've
know,
read,
unless it's April Fool's, this is just an MTR
yeah,
kind of
right.
thing.
Yep. Yeah, so because I've read fanfic and I've written fanfic for
Ooh.
other stuff. So, I
Yeah,
could
you've written
definitely,
fanfic for other people.
I have. Oh my God, there are
I'm not going
some
to obligate you into
cursed
going into
drafts that I
it,
have,
but
but we're not going to talk about
yeah, because
that.
I already know what you're talking about. Anyway.
Okay, well, anyway. So
Uh,
yeah, so basically we're just gonna do. Oh, and also, just to let you know, we have some rules.
oh,
Um,
yes, our ground rules.
we have some ground
Because
rules because, well,
we
for
were
one thing,
worried. Sorry.
we want to
Yep.
assure all of you that we are not. We're talking about this. We will be throwing some shade, but we will not be throwing any shade that like, this is coming at it from equal places. Like we have both of us have written fan
We are
fiction.
throwing rocks in glass houses, and we are
Yes,
totally aware of that.
we are going to try to make sure that our criticisms and our commentary keeps in the mind that most of the authors of these things are, amateurs and or
Children.
teenagers. So, you know,
Yeah.
we don't want to. I think we would probably be harsher if this were like published material, but like officially through like traditional channels, that
Yeah,
kind of
this
thing.
is amateur work made for fun, and no one's getting paid for it. You know, there's no professional editing going on. It's just like it's not in a vacuum, but it's just like in an obscure big pile now that
Yeah.
we alone are going to unearth, unless you also enjoy going into the Wayback Time machine and looking at Meet the Robinsons fanfiction, in which case
Yes.
you are our kind of people.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so and also one of our ground rules is that we will not be discussing any material that was published within like the last 5 years, I think is our cutoff.
Yeah.
So anything that was been basically anything that's been published
Oh, wait, no.
recently.
With the exception of like positive reviews. So like we're
Yes.
not going to talk negatively about anything published within that
Yes.
time frame.
Now, obviously, if you want us to like read your work and
Oh,
be
let us
brutally
know
honest
if that's
about
the
it, we
case.
will totally do that.
Definitely.
Wait, what?
Ooh, I said I just echoed your sentiment,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because the
So
more the merrier.
and yeah, so if you want us to like for the public talk about your thing, we will do that.
Or if
Uh,
anybody out there in the big blue world wants to actually come onto the podcast and talk to us either about fan fiction that they've authored or fan fiction that they've read, and within the MTR fandom, of course, that would be cool.
yes, we are
Not
soliciting.
expecting anything, but that would be cool.
Yeah, we are soliciting guests. Definitely if you've written for MTR fandom or are active within the community, we would
Or
totally love
like
to have you
were
on.
in a past life,
Oh yeah, or in a past life. It doesn't have to.
several
You don't have to be
marriages
active in it
ago.
now. We would totally be there for that. Additionally, speaking of community engagement, we totally encourage people to leave comments. So please send us asks, send us comments. We hope to respond to anybody who's listening. Assuming
Yeah,
there aren't people
via
listening, who knows?
SoundCloud, however that happens, because I'm not sure how that happens. Ooh, actually on SoundCloud you can like comment on the second. There's like a little
Yes,
bar. That's a neat
yes.
format.
So
But
yeah, we're gonna be
also, there's
posting
also a
this.
Tumblr.
We're gonna be posting
And
this
then
on
there's also our
SoundCloud.
individual Tumblrs.
We're also going to be posting this onto Tumblr, so feel free to leave us at. I think we're gonna have a separate account on Tumblr.
It'll just be linked somewhere
Yeah,
where you'll be able to find it. It'll be like in all caps and stuff or something.
yeah. So please feel free to throw us some communications, and we will
Throw us a
respond
bone, please.
yeah, we'll be if we get enough engagement, we might answer your questions or just talk about any comments we see.
Actually, it's
So.
very, very likely we will answer your questions, because that will be the only question. And we will love you forever.
Yeah, right. We're gonna get like one question per episode, and we're gonna devote like the entire episode to
Amazing!
it, depending on the question.
I love that for us.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to
Is
get out of the way in terms of the format of this thing, or do we want to jump into
Yeah, I think
the
all of
meat
our
of the?
chores are done, and now we get to go to the main course,
Yay! Excitement.
which is
Okay.
this episode's fic, The Mall, by the TheProzacfairy. Specifically
Yay!
the TheProzacfairy, because I looked up Prozacfairy and I got really scared that they deleted all their NPR fanfic. But no, we're good.
No, yes, the TheProzacfairy. So yeah, so we decided for our pilot we were going to choose a fic that was a one shot and was pretty easily digestible, and we decided to choose one of the TheProzacfairy's ones because they're pretty prolific if I remember correctly, and they've written some fairly notable stuff. Although this is one of
Yeah,
their
what's most notable about this author is that they're definitely like a mature person, as opposed to like someone in middle school or younger, because
yes,
you can tell by the way that they write
yeah,
that
I
they
think.
know some shit
So I'm gonna
about
actually pull.
life.
You'll hear some tick-tacking, and that's my keyboard. I'm gonna look up them on.
I have their bio open.
Oh, you do. Oh,
I
look
have
at
notes.
you over here.
I did my homework.
Prepared, unlike me.
Oh, you're getting a B minus, but I'm
Oh
getting an
no.
A in MTR
Ah.
podcast. Anyway, so they joined March 11th, 2008, and they have written mostly for Meet the Robinsons, but they also wrote a story for Rent.
Huh.
And you can just like look at their profile yourself, but
Yes.
their name is Shiri. They're in college studying nursing and special education. And okay, this is really interesting. They say I have a learning disability regarding reading and writing. And then down below, they also say, also please don't use the word, the R slur, or any of
Yes.
its variants, blah, 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 blah. It's offensive. And I found that really interesting that they like added that because I remember around 2008, the R slur was pretty popular.
Yes. Definitely. I agree with you.
Like you wouldn't say that now. You would not need that would not need to be said. So I guess good for them because I actually did find there's an Amazon Aviator fic where the author's note at the very, very beginning has the R slur in it, and that's the reason I never read it. And it turns out that was like one of like the better stories in the entire fandom. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, why?
Yeah. Yeah, it is
Why?
weird. I think one of the things that we'll discover when we're doing this podcast is, one of the more interesting things, at least for me, reading a lot of these fics has been sort of taking a peek into the past,
hmm
because 10 years ago is a pretty long time, and even in 2000, like a lot has changed since 2007, 2008,
Yeah,
and
the world is always changing at every second, but then you only notice it when you're like nostalgic for movies you watched when you were 10.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I've totally noticed a lot of different things, and one of the things you don't really realize now, but when you look back on it, it becomes really obvious, is that the art slur was
Mhm.
definitely more prevalent in that kind of
Yeah,
days.
and this is
Um,
not related to this fic, but homophobia was like a huge thing outside of fandom, but also inside of fandom, and
yeah,
MTR was not
definitely.
immune.
Nope. And I'm sure
But
that will
anyway,
definitely come up in some other fic
it
discussions I
does.
have planned.
It definitely comes up in a fic by the Prozac Fairy.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
does
Foreshadowing for the future,
her
maybe?
longest one. Yeah.
Ooh.
And okay, so the most notable thing about her profile is that, well, okay, sorry, their profile is that they're a college student at the time of writing, studying nursing and special education, and that influences like all of their fics, I think, because
Yeah, definitely. I've
it's
noticed
pretty
that.
obvious. I mean, it's obvious to me, I think, because they really take a lot of attention to talk about like psychology a lot, which is
Yeah,
like
I
mind
noticed that.
blowing for Meet the Robinsons fic.
Wait, what? Say that again?
It's mind blowing for Meet the Robinsons fic to involve psychology.
I know.
So,
Yeah,
well,
I know. It
it's
definitely
mean,
seems
but it's
like
true.
a lot of their work has like these interesting details that are fairly obvious when you see their profile, and then
Yeah, it's what makes them really stand out compared to other people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then okay, so
And
yeah,
then, okay,
so
the second thing,
mhm.
well, it doesn't have to do with this fic, but like they say, a lot of my stories might be, sorry, the burp didn't come. It might come later. A lot of my stories might be depressing. My 15-year-old sister died in October 2007 of a genetic illness she was born with, and they're they're still grieving, and that pops up in their fic,
Yeah.
and it does in a different story,
Yeah,
the same
definitely.
story that we've been referencing.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is really interesting. And I'm sure we'll get back to the Prozac fairies work over the
Yeah, I
course of
mean
this podcast, but
we
it is
shouldn't
really interesting how
waste
much
much
that
time.
event in their life affected their work and
Yeah,
all the
and
things in it.
I always am like so interested when authors include like little autobiographical stuff like that, because like
Yeah.
fan fiction is like such a strange world, and you just become really accustomed to like dumb usernames that don't make sense to you, and then these icons that are so small so you can't really see what it is, and then like
Yeah.
weird, just
It's
weird shit, and
also
then it's like, oh, you're a person, and you're like going to
Yeah,
school and stuff.
I
It's so
remember like a lot of
cute.
times I've seen some authors will include like these really interesting like little details about their life, that's what's going on in the author's notes when they're writing, which is
Mm.
so interesting. And you get to kind of see like, wow, like this person was like in band and they had
Actually,
band practice
actually,
after they were writing this. Like that's weird. You wouldn't normally see that in a
yeah.
published, like normally published material. So,
In almost all of my deleted fics, in my author's notes, I would mention what book I was reading at the time.
oh, that's so cute. I love
Yeah. My
it.
taste has vastly improved, but usually it would be just like I would be reading whatever somebody else around me was reading and they would just like hand it to me. I think that's how I got into reading, honestly.
Reading,
Anyway,
yeah.
the story itself.
Yes, let's talk about this. Let's break it in and talk about the story. So,
Woohoo!
we should probably start with a summary, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
actually don't have that. You should read that. Oh wait, no, I do have.
So,
No, I
oh
don't.
yes, yes. Feel free to read. I don't know if we want to put
Oh, okay,
links
I don't
in the
have that.
description
You gotta
of the
do
fic we're
that.
reading, but
Oh,
we could
should we?
probably do that.
I guess we could, yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
if we can't,
It's
then it's
ridiculously
called the
easy to
mall.
find on
Mhm.
fanfic.net.
Yes,
Yeah.
you probably wanna go. We're looking at this. Is gonna be on fanfiction.net, and you just wanna look at the mall by the Prozacfairy, and you'll find it.
Yep.
So this fic is really interesting, and okay. So like I said, I've read up to about 200 of these things as of now, and I don't
Yeah.
think
You
I've read
deserve the
one.
Guinness record.
Probably. Um, but I don't think I've ever actually read one that talks about um uh that it takes the perspective of an OC like this. Now, obviously, there are
Yeah,
fics
this
that take
this
the
is very,
perspective.
very rare, especially if the OC is an adult. Like that never happens. The OC
Yeah,
is usually like
definitely
a
not.
self-insert who's also a kid.
Yeah, typically, like I have seen
Oh,
fics
okay,
that
also,
talk about.
I feel like this might be really obvious, but I just want to clarify we're both in our 20s.
Oh yeah, that
In
should
case.
be. That's
I feel
important.
like I feel like that's implied in the sense that like, oh, we watched Meet the Robinsons when we were kids, so like someone could do the math, but like just in case you need to know
Yes,
and
just in
like
case, that's important.
tattle on us to Jesus or something. I don't know.
Would
Not
they
for
be
this
using
fic, but
like a hot? Do they
we're
have like a
gonna see.
hotline to Jesus? They pick up the phone like, Jesus, there
Yeah,
are these two
totally.
people talking about MTR fix and they're in
And
their
the phone
20s.
is like
Save their
glowing
souls
and
now.
floating. You know, the phone has like a halo on it or something.
Oh my
And
god.
there's like normal buttons where you can contact all the angels, and then there's a special button for Jesus. But then for God, you have to go through like a menu and then a secretary, and then the secretary asks you if you have an appointment, and then you have to say no, and then you go through another menu.
That feels very correct.
Anyway,
Um
I'm here all week.
So yeah, but yeah, this kind of fic is very rare. Like I feel like the fics that are about adults tend to be about Franny or Cornelius, and their
Yeah,
married
because
life. That's
they're the
typically the route.
parents
Or it's
of
Wilbur grown up. That's the
the
ones I've
story,
tended to
basically.
see. Um,
I have
I,
not read a lot of grown-up Wilbur fics. I've read like a few, but I think there's definitely more than I've read, obviously. But
yeah.
there's the burp. Uh, but like
There she go. There she is.
there she is. She was she was late, but she weighs an ounce. Um, but like yeah,
Okay.
adult Wilbur is like such an interesting. There's like so much potential there, but I don't think
Yeah.
that's tapped, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess sometimes people will make fics surrounding like, Gaston or Art or Lucille occasionally. But again, that's
They're
still,
usually not adults though. You know what
yeah,
I've
like,
noticed is that like if they make a fic about Gaston, they'll make a fic about him as like a teenager.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah,
which is
so it is.
like
Our point is that
interesting but disappointing also.
it's pretty rare to find a fic like this, and the fic in question is about Franny's mother, Franny the Framagucci mother,
Yeah.
um, which
Mrs. Framagucci.
yeah, who in theory exists in the movie.
We hope she exists. I would be
Yeah,
really bummed
we
out if
assume that
Fran,
through via
Gaston, and Art turned out to
context
be like
clues and
orphans.
inferences that she exists, although she is never canonically present.
Maybe I'm
So
sure she's like maybe she's like a background character in A Day with Wilbur Robinson. Huh? Huh?
she might be. I don't know. I haven't actually. Full confession, I have not read the full A Day with Will Robinson
Okay,
book.
once I order my scanner, because I definitely have to for school at some point. Once I order my scanner, I'm gonna finish scanning A Day with Wilbur Robinson. The trouble with it though is that because it's a square format, because it's a storybook, so it's like huge.
Yes.
So it doesn't fit on like most scanner beds. So that's why when I used to have a scanner, it took me like forever because I had to like splice everything. Anyway,
Oh boy.
I will undertake the scanning of the book. But
Shout out to that ambulance in the background.
I know. Corona, shut up.
So the official summary, I have it right here. The official summary
Yay.
of that, like the official summary on the fic is one shot. The young Framaguchi siblings and their mother go to the mall. Poor mom.
Yeah, that's accurate.
That is the summary. So, and it was some stats for you all. It was rated K, which I think is fanfic equivalent of G.
That's kid. Yeah.
Yep. Family humor category.
It was published on March 24th, 2008,
Yep.
which is not long after they joined. They joined on March.
Yeah. So it was one of the earlier ones that they did.
Yeah.
Um.
I think that's like
So
their first one.
their first one was Jennifer actually.
Oh.
I don't need to say anything more about that one. You know what that one is.
We'll get to Jennifer.
We'll get to
We
Jennifer.
will.
We'll get to you, Jennifer. We'll get to you.
Jennifer, you are on our list.
You will
Our hit
be
list.
dealt with in short order.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
yeah, so the mall. So I guess, do we want to say any more about the summary, or do we want to go straight into?
Yeah, it's really short.
It is pretty short. It's
got
only
like
like
6
2,000 words.
reviews, 7
Uh,
faves.
would you consider this a more of a drabble, or would you consider this like a full one shot?
This is a full story. Definitely has a full arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good, but it's a full story. I feel like
Putting it
Drabbles
right
are more
out
like,
there.
yeah, it could be better. I don't know. I
No,
feel
it's
mean, but
okay.
like
Hey, look, we're here to be honest.
this could be way better.
Yes.
There are
I
like
mean, like,
several things I take issue with in this fic,
yeah.
despite the fact that I know for a fact that like just from reading this, the author had like the world's greatest intentions, and they were probably getting like straight B pluses in college, B to A's. I don't know. I don't want to make
Yeah.
like you know.
Now, I would
They probably
definitely.
have like a running practice. You know what I remembered?
Mm?
They probably have like a running practice right now as we speak. You know,
You
and if they studied
know,
nursing, they're
they
probably doing
probably
something about
do.
COVID while we review their 10-year-old fanfic.
Wow. That, that's
That
some
really
weird
puts it
things
into
to think about.
perspective. Unless they like changed careers.
They could have. What are the
Anyway,
odds that they come into the comments and are like, "Hey, this is what I've been up to." I'd be like, "What? The Prozac Fairy? I have." At
okay,
this point, I'm a
honestly, like I
fan.
have so much
Like,
respect for them, and I respect their username.
I
It's
do.
just like this is a Tumblr username. They were ahead of the time,
They really
honestly.
were. No, I wish nothing but the best for this author.
Yes, it
But that
just was
being
not
said,
as good as it could be,
yes,
and yeah.
I agree. So I think, so I would say that this fic is definitely like in fanfic terms on the better end of the spectrum.
Well,
You know,
specifically
it's,
MTR fanfic terms.
well, for one, it's readable, which
Oh yeah,
which
punctuation. I
typically,
only saw like 2 or 3 typos
yeah, which is a high
that like made
number.
me stop,
Like
which
in
is
fanfic,
good. That's
yeah.
very good.
Yes, so it's readable, which is a good thing. Like there are so many fanfics that are just like there's so many errors or the
Punctuation,
formatting's garbage, you know.
formatting,
Like
basic
there's a lot that's just
orthography.
yeah. So I one of the things that stood out to me when I was reading this was um so the kids are pretty young, which
Yes.
was interesting. I think this is
Yeah, you can tell almost exactly how old they are because they're so meticulous about child psychology.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
really
was
interesting.
yeah, like they definitely like okay, I will one of the big praises I'll give this fic is that I think they were able to nail the way a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6.5-year-old would act,
Yeah, they're
which
they got it.
yeah,
Which
which is
I mean,
hard to do. I mean,
we
I
would
will
hope
admit
they
it's
do
even
because
hard for
they
me to
study
do.
special education.
Mhm.
But like, as a fanfic author, that's incredible.
Yeah. No, that's definitely really great because I've definitely read some fics where, you know, someone's like I don't know, like 6, but they definitely feel like they're like 10, you know. And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't I work with kids. I've worked with kids in the past, and I, you know, I'll see them and I'll interact with them, you know, as a just during my job because my
Hmm.
office at the I guess I should say by the way, I am a librarian.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't know
my
whether you wanted to disclose your vocation because I feel like that's incredibly relevant.
it really
It's
is.
especially relevant to how you approach reading every single MTR fanfic and then like cataloging them in your notes.
I know. I am a cataloger. Also,
I'm
I
very
will
grateful
say
to you because I don't have the patience to read all of these. Some of them are
I
really they're really dank, guys.
I mean, it's either that or I'm just obsessive. Like it's one of the two.
But it's a passion. I don't know. Maybe I can't. Maybe I'm not a good judge because I share this same obsession. But like
Right.
you know,
We're kindred spirits
we
that
are
way.
we are like psych ward roomies. Is what I'm saying. No. One thing I will say, the very first thing I noticed was this is going to be so long because I'm talking about the author's note, but the author's note it puts some of well it puts like another story of theirs into context. So they say
Mhm.
everything Gaston does in this fic is stuff I actually did as a child, often in the same day. I was a nightmare. I'm not trying to make him look bad. Actually, I love Gaston. And so you'll notice that they work with kids, and I get the feeling that they know a lot about like social work and child psychology.
Yeah.
And in another fic, spoiler alert, they have Gaston as a pediatrician.
Yeah, you're right, they do.
You know what I'm talking about?
Uh yes and no. Like I know I definitely remember reading that,
Okay,
but I don't remember in which fic it happened
it's
in.
in something new, I think.
The
It's like a
one
super
where
short
Carl is
one.
Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
by the
very
way.
cute fic. I
Oh
love that
yes,
fic
you're right. Yes,
actually.
you're right. Yes, you're right. I do remember
Yeah,
that now. Okay.
yeah.
Sorry,
So
the whole
he's
Carl is Jewish thing kind of dwarfs everything else about that fic in
it
some
does.
ways.
So,
We'll talk
okay,
about that one another day.
Carl is Jewish, and Gaston is a pediatrician in this author's worldview, and those are the two things I retain from that fic because they stood out to me like so starkly. I'm like, why a pediatrician? Really? What?
Yeah, I
So
always found that kind of weird because
that
like
kind of
nothing
I think
about
that
Gus.
really explains it though because Gaston is their self-insert. That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the
Oh, you
answer,
know what?
Alyssa.
You're
Yeah.
be yep. That checks out.
Oh.
Cause like I mean canonically it doesn't make sense. Cause like there's
Oh,
nothing about
especially
Gaston
not for
that
Gaston, but
what?
he's he's a human cannonball.
Oh, oh, ha 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 ha. I get it now. Yeah, like, because there's nothing in
uh,
canon that really suggests that
or
he would.
Gaston's canon. Sorry,
Yeah, that too.
sorry.
No, you're okay.
These are not very good puns.
Well,
Anyway,
it's all good. But
I'll be back with more
I'm sure. So like,
at 2.
so yeah, I
Anyway.
I think it is really interesting that that the author kind of like made Gaston their self-insert. Um,
Yeah, fanfics pretty much always reflect the author's like own projection in
yeah,
like such interesting ways. Like it's inevitable. We're not saying it's a bad thing.
no, I'd
Uh,
say that, any
sometimes it's a
published
bad thing.
work,
Sometimes it's
you
like
know,
worrying.
oh
But
yeah, there are some fics that we'll probably talk about later that I'm just like, I
oh
worry about
yeah.
this author so much. I hope they're okay.
I mean, I actually worry about this author just a little, just a teeny tiny bit because of this thing. Not a lot, just a little
Yeah.
bit. I
Yeah,
think
and
I think
I
they're
do
young when they
think,
wrote. So
because I mean,
I think they're like
obviously,
younger than us.
obviously, fics, like pretty much any published work, whether it's a movie or a book or whatever, tends to reflect a lot about the people who make them.
Yeah,
Like,
that's just how art works.
yeah,
You have to
but
pull from your own views anyway,
yes,
and
but
that's kind of what storytelling. People just use it as like a sandbox to work out their own issues.
yeah, and I would say that like my like but what's interesting about fan fiction, at least to me, is
Hmm.
because there's not like as much of an editing process. It sometimes turns into like kind of like a diary of this person's life
Yeah,
in a way that I don't think other published literature really does, because
yeah.
typically
The
the
most
editor will
far
remove.
removed one is TV because there are literally so many people who work in TV.
Oh
But
yeah,
even in television, you can tell like you can like tell stuff about the authors, even in a media like that. So
yeah,
a medium like fan fiction where it's like just like brain to paper to publishing like immediately, it's the potency is like so much stronger. The projection
yeah,
is like
yeah, definitely.
50,000 watts.
Which is which is kind of why I find it so interesting, because it's a medium that really kind of, there's not as many layers to the obfuscation of what's personal and what's fictional. So I find that very
Yeah,
fascinating.
definitely.
Um, so so I think so we both agree that like the kids' ages is one of the things that this author nailed. Is there anything else about this uh um fic that we think
Well,
they really did well on?
oh, okay. I was gonna like get into it.
Oh, you were gonna lay into them? I mean, we can if you think there's
Okay.
nothing
No,
else
no,
that they
no.
did well.
Let's try to look at the well, the silver lining makes it sound really negative. Let's try to look at their strengths.
Yes. Although I have a
They're
feeling that there will be some fics that will be like, let's talk about the silver lining first, and then it's all downhill from there.
like
But anyway,
their understanding of okay, this is another thing. Their understanding of Gaston, Franny, and Art's personalities is really good. And again, I
yeah.
think that comes from their knowledge of like young child psychology and stuff,
Mhm.
which is really cool because you'll notice in like the playground scene, Gaston is like really competitive because he wants to climb to the highest thing, and
Yes.
then Art also likes climbing, but I think it's just like a fun thing for him because he's not quite as competitive about it, and he will also go on the slide.
Yeah.
So he's like cool to do either one. He's more into climbing, but he's okay with slides.
Mhm.
And then Franny's just kind of sitting on the sidelines. Oh no, she's guiding an older girl, which I think is definitely in character for her because I think she's like I see her as like a very charismatic person
Yeah.
too, even for like older kids,
Mhm.
you know?
Definitely.
Like I don't know, I just kind of see that happening, that she's able to like charm this older girl and like her around if she
Yeah,
wanted to.
I'm going to guess that that's also partially being voiced by Jesse Flowers' energy too.
Ooh, definitely. And what's her name? Nicole Sullivan,
Yes.
who I think isn't like a really good voice actress. She accidentally voiced a lot of my favorite characters,
Yep.
like Joan from Clone High and Shigo from Kim Possible.
She
I mean,
go.
those are like the only two.
Yep.
She was in Grey's Anatomy for like 2 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
But anyway, their personalities and
yeah.
their ages,
Yeah, no,
just
it's,
their little minds. The portrayal of children in general, and then the portrayal of these particular children, works really well.
yeah. Yeah,
Do
it's
you
it's
have
really interesting that way.
Do you have another strength we can give the
Um,
Prozac Fairy?
I found the fact that Gaston was playing with staples to be
Oh
pretty
yeah,
funny and weird, but in a good way.
yeah.
Like, I don't, I definitely think, kids are the type of people who could probably play with stuff like that in that way, and I also love
I
how
like.
how she,
Mhm.
um, points out that kids aren't really aware of how dirty things are.
That's true. I really like the pant fort.
Oh yeah, that was funny too.
I Whenever I would go clothes shopping with my parents, I would just like hide inside, those like circular. I don't know if those even exist anymore because I haven't been to a mall for. But I'm pretty sure they still. It's like a
Yeah,
circular
yeah.
hanger,
I think so.
and
I
like
definitely do.
yeah, you can just stand in the middle, especially if you're tiny, and it's like
Yeah.
amazing. It's like you're going through Narnia.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a play I could definitely see kids being like super into that. And I definitely have hidden in there before too as a kid. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
so
Also, this is another positive. This whole fic made me nostalgic for malls for two reasons, which is
yeah.
time and Corona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't I mean I know you live in a city environment. I live more in the burbs, so there aren't
Yeah.
malls.
Technically, I've been to a mall very recently. I'm not super.
Gotcha.
But like, I helped the last time I was in a mall. I helped my friend move, and they just bought everything, like $1,000 worth of stuff in the same department store.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I don't know. The way that they adult is very particular.
Yeah, yeah, I mean malls are a really interesting environment to set things in.
Yeah.
Um, they
Oh
have
my
a
God.
very particular form of
Did you ever
architecture. They
watch
have a
16?
hmm?
Did you know what 16 is, the show?
Oh, I've heard of it,
Okay, some people don't know it that well.
I think.
Canadian. It's set in like a fictional mall, but it's based on like the biggest mall in the country, which is like somewhere in Ontario.
Hmm.
And it's just like just these teenagers being dumb in a mall, and it was like a very accurate portrayal of teenagers, but still in a cartoon setting. I
That's
found.
fun. Yeah,
Anyways, it's just
I
proof
think I
that
know what
malls are
you're
a great
talking
setting.
about. I'm really bad with TV though, so I could be making things up, but
That's true. I am like more of a TV guru than a book guru. I'm a
definitely.
TV and sometimes fictional book guru.
Yeah, so I
Anyway,
definitely think I do okay, so I agree with all that and I do think those are the strongest parts, but
yes,
now I guess we could go into the parts where we think the fic mix missed the mark. I
yes.
would
And I
say
think there's one big thing for
okay,
me at least. But
sure.
sorry, go on. I don't want to interrupt you. You're gonna
Okay,
say something.
well, I was only
I'll
gonna
hold.
say because it was related to the mall aspect of it.
Oh, go ahead.
I feel like I kind of wish that we had more description of the mall itself.
Ooh,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like the mall seems to be like a
definitely.
big part of this fic, right? And I think, and well, we do get like
Yeah, I think
the
it's definitely part of like the appeal of the fic too.
yeah, we
Like
definitely
I
get
can't
like
remember my mindset when I first clicked on it like 10 years ago, but
mhm.
like it's just set up to be like, ooh, adventures in a mall. And like I'm just like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then she does give us like store names, and then
Yes.
she more or less like summarizes things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think honestly, I will say that the whole summarizing aspect is probably one of the weaknesses of this author in general. I
Yeah,
think I've read a
definitely.
lot of her work,
Yes.
and I
Even
feel
in
like
her magnum opus,
yeah.
dating advice,
Yes.
it's still present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I mean like I do think unfortunately I think one of their flaws is that they they tend to kind of not exist within the scene, and they kind of their writing
Yeah.
tends to like kind of go by
Yeah,
real
I
fast, and you
definitely
kind of feel like
definitely get that.
if it kind of feels like they're not really, it's just all happening in summary and not really happening in the moment.
Occasionally it's good, and like as she goes on she does get better with like character and dialogue, which I think is the thing that saves her. But in
Yes.
terms of prose, the at worst sometimes it really feels like she's putting out a list.
Mm.
You know, like first they went there, then they did this, then they did
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and sometimes it felt like really bad screenplay direction, and I'm just like, this is so awkward to read.
Yeah. Also, like, again, because the mall is such a prevalent place, we don't really know what this mall looks like, you know? All we know is that it's a mall, which,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I don't know, I was just disappointed that it was called the Midtown Mall, and I'm like, that's not very descriptive.
like, yeah, there, I mean, like, I've been to, I mean, yeah, malls tend to look kind of similar, but I have been to, like, different malls. I've been to malls that are, pretty
Yeah, like
empty
the
and, like,
difference
definitely
between a
older.
big town mall and a small town mall is
Yeah,
huge.
there are different kinds of malls. I've definitely been to like super ritzy malls where it's like
Yeah,
three
there's
levels and there's a
also
movie
price
theater
points.
there too. I've been to malls that are like almost like ghost towns, like there's barely any stores around, and even the stores that are there are not very well populated. I've seen malls where it's like
Yeah, there are malls that are like more versus less diverse, because like if you're in a big city mall, there's usually like a significant homeless population hanging around. But
yeah.
meanwhile, there are like very wealthy people at some of the
Yeah, there are
richer
lots of
stores in
different
malls,
kinds of
like
malls.
Sephora. Yeah,
And I wish that we'd gotten a bit more character into this mall and like what it looks like, you know? Like who's hanging around here? You know, what are the
yeah,
people? What are the stores
yeah.
like?
The setting is very lackluster. I
Yes.
agree. The thing that bothered me with that is that like you read it and then you're like, oh, so art, and then suddenly she like jumps and they're like, we have already gone to two stores by this point, and I'm just like, when did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Um,
very it's a very like kind of summary of everything, and that kind of takes a lot of
yeah,
the energy out of it, you know?
it's
Like
so passive,
especially what was interesting to me too is that the fic kind of promises that like Franny, Gaston, and Art are gonna get up to some like super weird hijinks,
right?
right?
I,
And
I
like,
expected some like Bob's Burger style weirdness
yeah, and like
between the
considering what
three
we
of
know about
them.
them in the movie, we know that
Yeah,
they're
that's
like super
another
energetic and
big
competitive
flaw,
with each other, you
that the
know.
three of them don't interact a lot in this fic. There's like some minor interaction, but then
Hmm.
when they're playing, they're not really playing together.
No, they play
It's
separately.
weird.
Which is kind of weird. And I guess like some siblings prefer to play with people their age, but
That's
like
not them though. They're definitely
yeah, like
not
they're
that
very
kind of
close.
family.
Also, if they're like in a playground with strangers mostly, I would imagine they'd prefer to play together, or at least
Yeah,
might
or
gravitate to each
they
other
would
more than
they would
with
play
other kids.
together and then talk as a gay.
Yeah, like and then
Yeah.
also I Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that there's not a lot of interaction between the kids. They
Hmm.
don't really feel like siblings in that way, which is kind of a
Yeah,
shame.
this is exactly what you would want in a fic like this. You would want like, the highs and lows of being really, really close with your siblings
Yeah.
in a mall.
Yeah, like there's a lot of ways that like these
Hmm.
three could like make a mess or have a ruckus or have something
Yeah, because
happen,
it's a mall.
Yeah, there's
They
not.
could even go to the Disney store. Does that still exist?
Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention the weirdness of the fact that they name drop Buzz Lightyear in this fic, which to
Yeah.
me opens up a lot of weird can of worms. Like, okay, so Buzz Lightyear is canon in this universe. Does that mean that
Well,
but
I took it
MTR
to
isn't
say that
canon?
MTR doesn't exist
So,
because
but like every
that's who
other
they
Disney
are.
property does? Like,
Yeah.
does that mean that the storybook A Day with Wilbur Robinson also doesn't exist, or does it exist? Like,
So, judging
what?
by how Franny acts in this fic, I'd say it happens like anywhere between like 3 to 5 years, maybe even 2 years before the movie.
Okay.
And around that time, Buzz Lightyear was a pretty big deal, especially because of Toy Story.
Yes.
So I think in the author's mind, they just kind of set it present
Yeah,
two
I
years,
think so. Yeah, Toy
two
Story.
years
Yeah, Toy
before the
Story 2
present.
had come out like within the couple years of the movie's release. So,
The second one did. When did
yes.
when did the
First
second one
one
come
came out
out?
in 95. Second one came out like 2002,
Ooh,
I
yeah,
want
that
to
sounds right.
say.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely came
Okay.
out before 2004. Oh,
Mm.
1999. Oh my God, I was way off.
The second one?
Yeah, second one,
No.
1999.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Oh my
I
god.
am not kidding you at all.
Oh,
I
it's
am
true. The
looking at the
animation was
Wikipedia
really
article as we
weird.
speak, and it says Toy Story
Toy
2 is a
Story
1999
2.
American computer animated comedy film. So
Anyway, so one
anyway,
thing I would say is that all the characters' shoe choices, again, is a really good reflection of their character.
it is,
Like their
yes.
individual character is like pretty good,
Yeah.
but their relationships isn't there,
No.
and that means that the character is like even as individual could be. You don't get the opportunity to spoil them,
Yeah.
like or anything.
Yeah, and there's also, I
Wow.
think, one of the big things that this story is really missing is like a really big conflict, basically. Like,
Yeah. I
like
mean, I was prepared to like let that one slide because it's a one shot, and
it is.
fanfiction is not known for like tight plotting the way
No.
that published storytelling
It is
is.
very rare to find a fic that has like good plotting,
I found a few,
really.
but most of them are in like the Avatar fandom.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like with larger fandoms, you have like a larger pool, so like
Like
eventually you'll find
Racing
something that has
Time
good
was,
plotting,
I
but
think, the
it's
only one that really tried to make like an action movie
mhm.
good.
Yeah, but I
I
mean
mean,
like,
incredible process.
I guess
Anyway,
the amount of conflict that happens in the story is relative to the stakes of the situation, i.e., going a trip to the
yeah,
mall.
what I really wanted is that like because the premise is so simple, we need something to contrast it, right? So I was
Mhm.
expecting like the characters' personalities would really come through and
Yeah,
like push past the banality of like going to the mall,
right.
you know?
Yeah, and one of the things that was a little unfortunate is that I was a little well, look, I know that Franny's big defining characteristic is her love of frogs, but I also am like, I don't know, I feel like a 3-year-old has more going on with her even than just she likes frogs.
Well, a
Like,
3-year-old has like both more going on and less going on because she's like still developing like her taste buds and
yes.
her understanding of words.
That's also
So,
true.
like,
maybe I'm expecting too much of
Does she
3-year-old Franny
know?
then.
No, but I agree with you in the sense that like she's both like not mature enough for that. Her brain is like doing so many things that just
Mm,
focusing on frogs is very
mm,
true. If she was like 5 or 6, yeah.
mm. I will say my favorite store name in this whole fic is
Yeah, the store names
Campbell's
are pretty
Coats.
good.
That
I
one
had
is
to like,
funny.
I looked them up just in case they were real, and they were not real.
Yeah, no, they weren't. I looked them up too, but I didn't see anything that was
Yeah.
um
Okay,
real, which is fun.
but the blaring, that's a word. The glaring problem in this fic, in my opinion,
Hmm.
is that the point of view is not very powerful, and the protagonist is also not very powerful. And I
Mm.
put them as separate things because sometimes you're not really sure what point of view this is in.
Right.
The story frames it as the mom's point of view, but then
Yes.
did you notice at some point they use the first person? Hang on, I gotta find the
Uh,
sentence. Okay. Art was coloring quietly. Franny seemed happy with her toy, and Gaston sat still doing something. Actually, don't. Actually, couldn't tell what he was doing. Sat on the floor in front of the bench, sitting quietly. Parentheses. And did I mention sitting still, moving his hands along the floor? So
mm,
this fic is in the third person,
it
and it's
is.
narrated by someone else,
Yes.
and we don't know who that is. And just
Yes.
judging by the like really casual prose, I just kind of assumed that it was supposed to be Diane's point of view, which I
Yes.
think I think that's the point. But she really confuses the fact with by like switching the pronouns.
Yeah.
Okay, one other thing I will say
Hmm.
in in her author's bio, she says that she's a fan of Chuck Palahniuk.
Oh
Ooh,
yeah.
I got that right. And Chuck Palahniuk always writes in like a hugely subjective way
Mm.
that's like incredibly annoying, but it's very unique, and I think that's part of why he's so successful. So he always writes like directly in the character's voice. So all of their accents and all of their mistakes and their fumbles and their whatever, it's just like having a very long phone conversation sometimes.
Oh man. I've actually, quick confession, I've never read
So I
any of
think,
Chuck Palahniuk's books. I definitely
yeah,
know of them, but I've never read
I
them myself.
they are definitely not for everyone. I've only read so far. I've only read one of his books that I like. I've read a lot of his books because my sister really, really likes him, which
Mm-hmm.
of course means that I like borrowed all of her books. And she's like dyslexic, so she doesn't read a lot of novels.
Ah.
So it's weird how into him his writing she is.
Mm.
But anyway, uh, for those that don't know, he's an incredibly gross author. He wrote Fight Club. That's what he's most famous for.
Yes.
And he just and the favorite book of his of mine, you get what I mean, is called Rant, and
Mm-hmm.
it's about a rabies epidemic, and there's time travel and
Oh.
like abuse, and there's like race car drivers and like gang wars. It's
Okay.
literally like so intensely bizarre and disturbing. That's just like his style of writing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tangent though.
That's
Basically,
fine.
why I brought it up was because he writes always in the first person, and the reason why Rant is like I think where the first person style comes in the best because it's formatted as a quote unquote auditory document, oral documentary
Ah.
or whatever. So it's just like interviewing people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I don't know. That just makes more sense than like a regular novel when it's just talking to you hundreds of pages. Anyway,
Yeah.
my point being though that I think that's like influenced some of her some of the Prozac Fairy's creative choices when it comes to the point of view and the way that they made their prose. I don't
Uh-huh.
think they did it very well.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's cool that you're able to pick that up because, since I haven't read any of his work, I did not recognize that she was lifting from his stuff or was being inspired by it. But
I'm
yeah,
sure
if you
there's
know
more
someone's work,
factoring in, but that's
hmm?
one thing I noticed. Sorry,
Yeah, you're okay.
you can talk now.
Well, I mean, I guess I like in terms of um I guess like the one thing that frustrates me about this fic is that like I feel like there's a lot of really good, cool details that are in here that are like just super interesting and really bring a lot of life to the characters, but I just wish
Yeah,
that the structure and sort of the prose was a bit more in the moment and was not so summarisy. I think it would
yeah,
really improve it because I think
they
there's a lot of
really,
good foundation here. It's
yeah, they
just
don't use the full potential of the character.
no,
And
they
the
don't.
weakest point is having protagonist, but then not really developing her personality at all.
Yeah, and
Like she's a very,
honestly,
very weak character, and
hmm
like her, just reading her thought process is very boring, and it starts getting a little repetitive too.
yeah, I mean like even though we know her head in her head, we don't really know much about her. We don't really know much about Diane, you know?
Yeah,
Like we know that she has these three kids. We know that she is buying things for people, but it's all about other external factors in their life. We don't like, for example, we don't even know if she has a job.
right.
I think, right? I don't think she mentions a job. We don't know what her if she's married, which I'm assuming she is. We
No,
don't
she
know.
mentions the fic mentions that she has a husband. Very awkwardly, by the way. Hang on, because she's at McIntyre's department store, and they needed new linen, and she had to pick out a gift for her husband's cousin's wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, so we know she's married, but we have no idea what she does for a living, and if she's just a homemaker, we don't know what her husband does. I mean, not that it's necessary for us to know that information, but
I think that would be a very simple way to help give her way more character.
yeah, I feel like her
I get the
entire
impression that
character
she
is kind of
is a homemaker, though. I think that's,
defined by the kids and going to this mall to get things, you know what I mean?
yeah, I'm like stressing out over them 24/7.
Yeah. So
What's
to
interesting is that she buys a book, she wants to buy a book on autism.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, isn't it about ADHD?
No, hang on. The other, it says, okay, first up, the bookstore. Her sister just found out their toddler had Asperger's, and Dad happened to know a few books that dealt with the subject. So the author's definitely projecting, but like as a reader, we could maybe,
I really do wish we knew more about Diane as a character, and I think
we really don't.
that's
That's a
kind of one
shame.
of the flaws of fan fiction. I think a lot of people
Hmm.
tend, I mean, OCs can be such a double-edged sword because on one hand, I think people sometimes are too afraid to have like fleshed out OCs in their fanfic.
I'm
Um,
nodding.
I mean, like I understand why in some ways because like a fanfic is like you're supposed to be taking place in this shared universe and
Hmm.
you have characters that are already developed and adding an OC can kind of change
I've
that,
like
but
read really good fanfic, like 100% OCs, and like it can be done. Don't
yeah.
be afraid.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'd say
Hmm.
that I think a lot of people
It's
think
hard,
like yeah,
definitely.
cuz I think some in some ways OCs have kind of gotten a bad rap, right? A lot of people think, "Oh, if it has an OC in it, it's going to be a self-insert OC, it's going to be garbage, you know?"
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
if there's a person who's coming to read about these characters, then they might not want to engage with like an original character. And then I think that you get to the opposite problem where people have OCs, but they're afraid to like flesh them out well because they don't want to like distract from the canon
I think that's
characters.
the same problem. It's like an extension of the same problem.
Yeah, so and I feel like this fic has that problem. I feel like
I would actually say that this fixed problem isn't that they're. I mean, it might be that they're afraid. That's what it could be, but I also think it might be because they just aren't able to develop the characters.
mm,
Because like it could be anxiety. I mean, it could be both. But I think the thing about fan fiction is that the appeal is that you have like all these pre-made characters that you get attached to.
yes.
And with Meet the Robinsons, none of the characters are all that developed outside of like Lewis, who, and like a little bit Wilbur.
Yeah.
But and like a lot of everybody's idea of their characters is just like within the collective consciousness, but not actually all that. There's not actually that much material in the text.
No.
So sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but the
You're okay. You have a lot to say, so
I
totally
I
go for
always
it.
have so much to say. I can't handle short formats. It's a curse. I really can't. um, what was I saying? So the character, right? So they kind of start to rely on that they will always have a template to fall back on, even if it's
Mhm.
like the smallest canon thing. You see them
Right.
wear a funny hat one day, and then like people are able to make like an entire story with that, and it's really beautiful, it's really nice. And
Yeah,
then
like
they
yeah.
kind of like depend on the canon giving them material. And then when it comes to
Right.
like them making up their own stuff, they can't develop it the same way. And like
Mhm.
in in the past, my my very tumbleweed writing career, but in the past, I totally related to that a lot more than I do now.
Mhm.
So I think you just have to think of it in pretty much the exact same way, especially when you realize that like the characters that you've grown so attached to, they, I mean, you only grew attached to them through like a couple scenes, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, in Meet the Robinsons, the case.
Yeah, like yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I guess that's kind of the problem with writing MTR fanfic, especially, or you can apply this like any small fic where there's like a very small main cast. Because
Yeah.
like there are, I mean like MTR
Yeah,
does
the
have an
problem of
ensemble cast,
OCs is like
but
a
most of
huge
the
problem with small fandoms that don't have a lot of characters.
yeah, or at least because like I've definitely read like because I wouldn't really even though there's all the Robinsons. I wouldn't really
Mm-hmm.
consider this movie to have an ensemble cast because
Yeah, it's
most
not.
of the Robinsons are just extras basically. They're
Mm-hmm.
not really on the same level as like Lewis or Wilbur or
A lot of them have like no dialogue except for like one line in the
yeah.
montage where you see the whole family.
Whereas compare this to something like Harry Potter or
Harry Potter is overwhelming, I
yeah,
find.
or like Harry
I
Potter
could
or
You could spend
um
days on the Harry Potter wiki on a character who
or
never shows
Avatar:
up
The
in the
Last
books.
Airbender,
That's the second
or
most overwhelming one that I know of.
yeah, or like I'm trying to think of like there's so many
Star
most
Wars,
Saturday
probably.
morning cartoons.
The thing is, people are still able to write like pretty decent fic about them, and like collectively, we can still like infer what that character's personality is, even what their
Yeah,
background is, based
yeah.
off of like a very minimal amount of scenes, which I think is
Hmm.
like one of the really neat things about fanfiction.
Yeah, no, I think a really creative author can definitely extrapolate a whole background for characters who only have like a couple lines of dialogue.
Yeah, as this author has done, but it's tragic that they couldn't transfer those skills to a character that like I feel like there should be a new name for this type of character, but the character that doesn't exist in canon, but like they have such a basic role, we can assume that they exist. You know
Ah,
what
I
I
see what
mean?
you're saying. Yeah, I know, I get what you mean.
Because
Like,
they're the family member of a main character that never shows up, basically.
yeah, like Mrs Framagucci in this case. Like,
Yeah.
we assume that she has to exist within this universe, but she was never outright confirmed to exist. But it would be weird if she didn't.
Yeah, like
Wouldn't make
you
sense.
you assume that Franny and Gaston and Art aren't like robots, and you assume that they're not orphans
Yeah.
because um wouldn't it be terrible if like literally everybody in the Meet the Robinsons universe was an orphan to be adopted by someone?
Yeah. That would be very
Yeah,
strange. Um,
yeah, which
but
is essentially like kind of a trope in the fandom, just to
yeah.
clarify. But anyway,
I definitely think that um uh it is a little upsetting that like um Diane doesn't have more of a like inner life and we don't
hmm
know much about her. And I do wish that the author had
we
like,
don't even get like her opinion on her kids. You know,
you're
we
right.
mostly get like
I didn't
we
even think about
mostly
that, but
get
you're so
her
right.
being
Like
like
all we know is that she thinks they're a handful, but like
occasionally she compliments them. I
yeah.
think she like complimented Franny
Mhm.
uh, when she's like I don't know, I can't remember. Anyway, but like a few times she compliments them, but mostly we just see her being like really, really stressed out. And I'm just gonna segue into like the other thing I don't like is that she's like her style of parenting is like bad.
Ooh, oh no, we're getting into the real weeds
Okay,
here.
well,
All
okay,
right.
first I'm gonna get into the leashes, the child
Oh
leashes.
yeah, she mentioned the leashes.
Because first of all,
I
she
honestly I
mentions,
was kind of weirded out by that because I was like, on one hand, like the
because when
author isn't
I,
condoning it and she doesn't really like the leashes, but on the
yeah,
other hand, like why even include this detail at all?
exactly. And Diane
You know?
mentions, like, oh, the child leashes, they're kind of degrading, but I bought them anyways. And then the kids escaped anyways.
Yeah,
And
like
I'm
I
just like,
guess the only reason I can
what?
think of that the Proza Fairy put this in there is because she wanted to imply that like Franny, Gaston, and Art were so much of a handful that like it
Yeah.
pushed the mother to the point where she felt like she needed a leash.
Okay, this is another thing I've noticed, like another potential writing flaw that's very common is that like when you want to create a threat, you only do it through the character's reaction and not just through like the I guess in this case the antagonist. There's no antagonist, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The antagonist's actions and then the consequences of those actions.
Hmm.
You know, it's
Oh,
like
excuse me.
a close cousin. Oh, I didn't even hear that. A close cousin to the show don't tell rule,
Mm,
right? So instead of them telling you that there's supposed to be a threat, the character is is reacting to them as if they're a bigger threat than we actually see them be, and
right.
it makes it end up feeling very very melodramatic
Hmm.
because like the kids are rambunctious, but it's not told in a way that like really makes you feel it. And it's just kind of
Hmm.
like okay, they run around a lot, I guess, but then
Yeah.
Diane's panicking, so you just get like this weird melodramatic like dis disconnect.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
thing.
like
Oh, sorry.
I also feel like it's weird because I also think it's partially the tone too. Like
Mm-hmm.
cause it's supposed to be funny, so I guess the idea is that like they're like her like it's supposed to be like there's supposed to be a lot of like overstatement, like oh they're like such a handful, you know what I mean? Or there's
Yeah, I'm
supposed to be
like, okay,
some
in my notes,
comedic
I'm like,
devices used here, but
I
I don't
wrote
know
this
if it's
bitch
used
is
the right
acting
way.
like it's a hostage situation when they're only in the parking lot.
Oh my
Because
god.
because
No.
she instructs Art and Gaston to hold onto either her arm or the stroller at all times. And
Yeah.
I'm like, even in my bubble childhood, I don't think I've ever had to do that. I
No,
could just
no,
like
I
walk
don't
next
ever
to an adult.
remember my parents ever being like, hey, you need to like hold on physically to my person or the stroller because you wander off that much.
Yeah, the only time that that's like absolutely appropriate would be like a real danger. It's just like calm down, Diane.
Yeah, like I don't know.
it's
Like it does seem kind of weird
it's
because like what's also kind of weird to me is that
like it's
it
obviously there to create conflict, but it's just very awkwardly done, and it just makes
yeah.
Diane look irrational,
It
basically.
does, cause like honestly, Gaston, Art, and Franny don't act that badly behaved throughout the entire thing. Like, I
Yeah,
guess
they
they
don't actually do anything that bad. They just kind
really
of
no.
annoy
The worst thing
employees.
that happens is that Art knocks over some items in the store, and then
And
Gaston hides in a clothing rack. But like, kids do that all the time, and like even like, but that could even happen even to the like your average kid. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
so to me it's
like
kind of like I
it
why
kind
like
of
I
just
have to
makes her
ask like why
seem
is
really
she acting this way?
inexperienced.
We don't have any evidence that their behavior was so bad that she would have to think about getting a leash. They don't in this fic they don't
Yeah,
act that badly. Like they don't act to the point where they needed. I mean obviously, honestly it's kind of a weird conflict cuz like Diane is both so concerned about her kids being acting up that she demands that they stay close to her at all times in
hmm
that way, but yet also lax enough that she lets them play on a playground with other kids and just kind of wander on their own in the playground setting.
but I think it's because it's a playground,
Okay, yeah, I guess.
right? But I
Yeah,
think
because,
the mall is like scarier. But
right, like being in stores and
it's
everything like that. Because in playground, they're allowed to be more rambunctious.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
so
safe.
but again, yeah, there's really nothing in the story that really shows us evidence of them being rambunctious, super rambunctious.
And the thing that bothers me is that sometimes they write Diane as if she's like a babysitter and not like their mother who kind of is already used to their behavior. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
the mother of like really, really rambunctious kids, you'd expect her to be like kind of blasé about it, you know,
Yeah.
unless they escalate it to a new level that she's never seen before,
Yeah,
which
like you would
this story
imagine
could
that
have done.
like her like Gaston hiding or playing with staples or like knocking something over or Franny stealing the towel. You would think that those things would be like, you know, like that they would be pretty par for the course for kids like this, but Diane kind of acts like it's like a big deal every time it happens. So I think that kind of
Yeah.
betrays the author's point of view too, you know what I mean? Because if you think about it,
Yeah,
the
like
author, as
I'm
far as we know,
guessing the
she's
author
not,
is
or
like
they're not
about
a mother
18.
or a parental figure of any kind.
I think the
And
author's like still fairly young, but they are in college, but I think they're on the very young end.
yeah, they're
That's
probably like
what I would
freshman,
guess.
sophomore, I'd guess.
Like 18, maybe 19, 17.
Yeah. So that makes sense then that in theory, their only real experience with taking care of children would be as a babysitter, where they're meeting these children for the first time, or
Ooh. Yeah, that makes sense.
they only have like
Oh
limited
my god, we
experience,
cracked it.
or maybe they work at a daycare or some other type of situation
Yes,
where
that would make a
they're
lot of
dealing
sense.
with
Because I
children
feel
who
like
aren't
they
that they aren't
would have
interacting with
experience.
daily. They're interacting with them like in a
Yeah.
confined setting for only a couple hours a day.
Yeah, like she has,
So
sorry, they have, it seems like they have experience with children just like in general, and
Yeah.
they like put enough effort into characterizing them in the shape of Fran, Art, and Gaston, but
Yes.
they don't know about like the subtleties of like raising children and then like being around them all the time,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, I definitely
I don't
agree.
either, but
So that
I
would
think as you get
probably
older, you get better at guessing.
yeah. Yeah, so I think that that probably would go to explain why Diane is the way she is, you know. I mean there is always the cliche that like the first thing whenever I think of when I think of an OC is that it's probably some sort of self-insert character. And I mean, part of me wonders if Diane in some ways is a self-insert of the
Yeah,
way that the author thinks about kids or interacts with kids.
maybe.
I mean, I don't think
Maybe
it's a
it's like,
I think this author's mature enough and a little bit
yes,
working at a bit at a bit of a higher level than some other authors that
yeah, definitely.
I think I don't think like Diane is like a literal carbon copy of the author,
Yeah, that's
but
not
more
how
that some
projection
of the more
works.
subtleties of their perspective and the
Hmm.
way they act is drawn
Hmm.
more from
It's
like I have a feeling that
very Jungian that way.
yeah, I feel like they kind of the way they approached writing Diane was mostly from their own perspective of how they dealt with kids rather than thinking about it from a different
Yeah, it
perspective.
feels like a little detached from the kids. Like it really feels like
Yeah,
someone who's on their shift looking after the kids
yeah.
rather than someone who's like seen them their whole lives
Yeah,
and
like someone
you
who
know
is like super invested in their
and their like
livelihoods too.
well-being emotionally,
Yeah.
etc. Because I mean, Diane's responsible enough to like prepare snacks and etc. etc. But like, I don't see her like really engaging with them
Yeah, she's not. She doesn't
other
talk to
than
her
telling
kids
them
all that
off.
much.
Yeah,
She's just kind of going like you better behave. That's pretty much it.
yeah, and then like rewarding them with the toy store, but it's secretly because there's a kid's birthday party coming up.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they don't really interact in the way that you would with your mom, you know. Also, like I'm kind of
Yeah,
surprised that Gaston and Art don't really like badger their mom about anything.
right.
Like
There's
Gaston's
just like
and
no
Art are
conflict.
five
There's
and
just
six and
them
a half.
being
Like that's the kind of age where you ask and you talk to your parents all the time. And you like
yeah, and
ask
you
them
like
like
ask
banal
them so many
questions about random
questions
shit.
that
Like
like
none of that's in here. All of
no.
their rambunctiousness is physically, but I don't think the
Hmm.
author's considering their mental rambunctiousness, you know, you
Yeah,
know,
they were definitely very early in university.
yeah, like I could totally imagine like one of them picking up some object in one of the stores and being like, "Mom, what's this? What's this? What's this? Mom, can I have
Yeah,
this?" You know?
they're like asking questions not even to know the answer, but just because they can, just because
Yeah.
they're figuring out like what a question is.
Yeah, so I was kind of surprised that there was not as much like of that kind of conversation happening between the mother
Yeah,
and
that
stuff
would
like
have
that.
definitely like improved the story a lot, I think.
Yeah, or like
Because the dialogue, I'm the queen of dialogue. The dialogue is so
yes.
bad.
Yes, I
It's
know
like
you are the
dead in the
crowning
water,
champion of dialogue.
missing in action. It's like, okay, mommy, we'll behave, Gaston said. She took that with a grain of salt. I'm like, Gaston's not doing anything bad, so it just makes Diane look really mean.
Yeah. Again, I like that's kind of the problem with some fan fiction. Like I think obviously um it's less of a problem with MTR because MTR is so small, but even in MTR
Hmm.
sometimes there's different expect like I think a lot of people take some characterizations for granted and they assume that
Oh, yeah.
their logic will make sense to readers. Like yes,
Yeah.
if
Yeah, you have to, in your story, you have to justify that
yeah,
characterization.
like
You have to
yes,
show people.
like yes, we if just going by what the movie like if you're assuming your audience has just only read watched the movie, then yes, it would make sense that our Gaston and Franny would be rambunctious as children because of how energetic they are as adults. Like, that's not
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
huge leap in
they're like
logic to
insane
make.
adults. I would want to be like them when I'm their age. Like, they work out. All three of them, like, work out regularly.
Oh my god.
You can tell. Not just because Art's buff, but like just look at them.
Yeah, I
I mean, they're
know.
cartoons, but like, damn.
Yeah, like I can make that leap of logic, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, we don't see them as kids in the movie, except for Franny. We don't really see them as children, so in a
Mm-hmm.
way, making this idea that they are super rambunctious as kids is a headcanon. It's it's something that you're bringing to the established canon that already
Yeah, something
exists.
that's like technically your idea, and because it's your idea, you have to justify it in the context.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are reacting. If it's not like justified and like present in the story, the characters are reacting to like nothing, and then it looks
Mhm.
like irrational.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I don't think that Gaston, like, I don't think it's enough
Yeah,
for the reader to be like, well, everyone already knows that our Gaston and Franny are like really energetic people, so this makes sense. I'm like, no, you
like
should
also
still
Gaston doesn't have any like other lines
no.
before this. I mean,
And also,
I
again,
don't think he does at
other,
all.
as we've also established
Nope.
earlier, even if we assume that
That's like the first thing he says, and that's the first thing he says that should be it should reflect his character more.
yeah,
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
like I even though we've already established, and even if we assume that it's would be common knowledge in the fandom, or it would be a common headcanon that our Gaston and Franny were rambunctious as kids, that still doesn't tell us how rambunctious they were, you know? Like that's a
Yeah,
whole up to
we can
interpretation thing. Like,
assume, but like the
you know what I
devil's
mean?
in the details. This
Yeah.
is this is a missed opportunity.
Yeah, so it just kind of feels like the author is assuming that all of us are on the same page and that, oh yeah, I'm sure they've had, I'm sure our Gaston like walked into a china shop and broke all of the all of the porcelain, and then
Mm-hmm.
that they got like they had to leave the mall or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I feel like th- that is kind of what the author is assuming that people are thinking, but I feel like that's kind of not the best thing to assume.
Yeah,
I think
that makes a lot of sense. That
so.
that's
That's
why that
also a thing that
happened.
I noticed too.
Question: what do you think about Nito in this like canon? They had Buzz
Well,
Lightyear on them.
do
Okay,
I
hang
mean,
on.
do you mean just objectively, like as a word? How do I feel
Wait,
about it, or
let me
just in
just
the
read.
within the
You know what I
context?
mean. You know what I mean, man. Let me just read the passage. Amazingly, Art found his shoes in the first store. They had Buzz Lightyear on them, and they lit up. Nito. Oh lord, their language had infiltrated her thought processes. But I'm just like, that's their language?
Yeah, that was I found that kind of odd. I don't know if it really added all that
It was
much.
very jarring
Like
to me.
like if she had just said Nito and then moved on, I would have just thought it was just like a funny little
I
aside,
would have
like
thought that I would have thought that
ah.
was kind of insane if she didn't add that. So
Yeah. I mean, is she assuming that this parent is just thinking in
because
just stilted, like her internal monologue is just stilted proper English? I thought that was very distracting and kind of unnecessary. I don't think I would have thought it was out of place for her to say Nito. Like, I don't think that would have been a character break. I
I
think that
actually thought that would have been very weird,
it
but it
was.
wouldn't have been as weird as it is now
No.
because now it's even weirder.
Yeah.
But like, like it was weird at first, and you could have just dismissed it, but then the author tries to explain it away as a joke, and then
Mhm.
it just like falls apart completely.
Yeah.
And like
I
the thing is,
agree.
Yeah, the thing is, because this is a joke about dialogue, and the dialogue is like as plain as like the worst white bread you've ever tasted ever. So the author,
Dang. That is some
it's
harsh
very bad,
wording right there. But honestly, I
especially because
can't say you're
kids
wrong.
say the weirdest things ever, and like they could have they could have had them say anything. They could have had them do anything, and it would have kind of been okay because they're kids. It's like that's the great thing about kids and storytelling, you know.
Yeah.
But no, they are like these perfect, obedient little parrots. I guess they're like, "We'll behave. I promise I'll be good." Like that's the dialogue that you get before this line,
Mhm.
and the mom's own dialogue. If we can assume that the prose is essentially her thoughts,
Mhm.
the mom's dialogue is equally like bland.
Yeah.
So the word neato doesn't like match with either of their talking styles.
It does not. It does
So
not match it at
it
all.
literally just like comes out of nowhere
Mhm.
and like smacks you in the face. Maybe that's a little harsh, but like it's
Yeah, no,
really
it
such
doesn't
a
really
non
match.
sequitur.
It doesn't really match the rest of the
Like we don't
mood
have the
of.
proper setup for this joke.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty weird that way. And I definitely agree that it's like it's just like what?
Yeah, it
Like
was just I think that
it,
was one
it
of the
doesn't really
weirdest
make
parts of the
sense. It
story.
doesn't add anything to have that,
Hmm.
you know. So, I don't know.
Yeah, like
It's just
maybe
like
the author
really
could have
weird.
gone more into how maybe becoming a mom has like influenced the way that she behaves, you
Yeah.
know? Because I think that's what she was trying to. That's what. Sorry, pronouns. That's what they were going for. Just because the majority of fanfic writers are usually girls. This is
Yes.
this isn't even sexism. This is just reality. But
Yes. Yes,
we
it's
can't
true.
make assumptions. Anyway, what was I saying?
Uh,
Uh,
Sorry. So I just got distracted because I decided to take a peek into the reviews. I was like looking at the
oh my
comment
god,
section.
the review. That okay, this whole fic is worth it for that one review.
So you
It's
noticed what I
literally
noticed,
the
right?
funniest thing ever.
So
It's the best.
okay, so I guess we should talk. So are we well, first before we move on to that? Should we talk about? Do we think we're good talking about the main story, or is there any
Well,
other
hang on.
final thoughts on
I had
the
a
main
train of
story?
thought, but I can't remember what it was.
Say what?
I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
Like we were talking about how bad the dialogue is,
Yes.
and then how the mom. Oh my god, I almost said it. The mom.
You can do it.
I don't know. The mom's thoughts don't match this joke. I guess. I guess I'll
Yeah.
come back to it.
Yeah, it's I don't
Oh.
know. I also agree that it's kind of like the dialogue is kind of a big sore point. But one of the things that I like to talk about when it comes to these things is the review section or the comment section, depending on what site it's posted on, because I feel like
Mhm.
that tells you just a lot about like the the people who are reading it, their thoughts, etc. And sometimes you find some really funny things.
Yeah. So there are three very significant reviews, and they're like the first three, and like they
Yes.
are in order. They are in order of weirdness, or like decreasing weirdness. So the
Yeah.
very
Yes.
first review, it just floored me. It's like so funny.
Yeah. So there's
Do you
like
want to read it?
I mean, I think we'll be here quite a while if I read it.
So just summarize it. So
Okay, so
we need a dramatization for the
the
people.
first review on the thing that was posted, I think it was even posted like the day this fic went live, but it just says, "Yeah, poor Diane.
And
First
it's in all
review."
caps.
Yeah, all caps. "Yeah, poor Diane. First review." Yeah, and then it proceeds to write Gaston.
It's a wall.
A wall of Gaston. Just Gaston, 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 Gaston. Just over and over and over and over again.
And then all the way down there in the middle, it says, I love Gaston. Keep moving forward. Stay gold. Ember 411, which is their
tag.
Which is their username.
Yes.
But like, it just makes me think of an Ember Alert. And 911.
And then they proceed to fill out the entire rest of it with just Gaston. I am so, like, okay, what would you do?
People really love Gaston.
I'm so curious. What would you do if a review like this was on one of your pieces? Like, what would you make of it?
Slightly disappointed that they didn't use their words, but I would still read it really positively, like a show of enthusiasm, because that's clearly what they're trying to do. Because they're like, Gaston is my favorite character. I'm really happy that he's in this fic.
Yeah.
This is a good fic. I like the movie. I like the character. This is cool. I think that's essentially what the review is trying to communicate. And I'd be like, thanks. I think that's how I would take it. You?
Yeah, like, I just think it definitely seems like it's just kind of a friend supporting a friend, being like, yeah, and then, like, doing that weird thing where they're like, I'm gonna...
So you think it's an inside joke?
No, I don't know if it's an inside joke.
Okay.
But I definitely do think that this is... I think I have seen other reviews where their entire goal was like, I'm gonna max out the character limit in my review.
You know,
I think this is also...
I've done that before. I'm not proud. But it's not the same way that this isn't. But you know what I've noticed?
Mm-hmm.
You can tell by the pattern, because I copy pasted the fic into a Word file just to reference it.
Yes.
And Word is highlighting the error. So the 3, 6, 9, the 10th Gaston is misspelled. So it's highlighted. Which means I think they typed out Gaston 10 times. And then they highlighted that and they copy pasted that.
Oh, I see.
Because you can also see some of them are like glued together. They didn't bother to space it out.
Yeah.
Rookie mistake when you're doing, I don't know what you call these, paste bins.
Yes. That's really funny. That's a really funny thing you noticed. I did not notice that, but now that I see it, I can't unsee it.
Yeah. It's cute.
Yeah, no, I have no, this is a pleasant surprise, is what I'd say.
It was hilarious. It was just like, yeah, it was also published, the review was published the same day that the story was published, so this person...
Yeah,
I don't necessarily know what that means.
I have read some of Ember 411's work, so I recognize them.
Do they write about Gaston? I'm guessing.
Let me look on my little, it's not a little cheat sheet.
It's growing.
It's a long cheat sheet, but
he's a growing boy, that cheat sheet.
Oh no.
What?
No. They were the ones who wrote those really creepy fics.
Which one?
So there's...
I love that I can't tell just by the creepy fics.
They've written 5 that I've read. Okay, well, one of them is Carl's Bite. That one's not creepy. That one's fine. That one's like...
Okay.
Whatever.
I'm holding my breath here.
There's that weird one. It's called Gaston's Perfect Gift. And I was like, oh my god, no.
Oh, okay. So it's about him.
It's an incest one, but it's not timecest. It's different.
Well, who's it between?
Gaston and, like, Tallulah, I think. It's so weird.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, god. Oh, and I think there's multiple. Okay, there's Lusty and Buster. I don't have any notes on that one, but I definitely remember reading it.
Oh my god.
There's My Little Niece. That one's also creepy. Yeah. Those two were, like, weird as hell. I don't even know.
Oh my god.
Maybe we'll talk about those someday. Leave in the comments or send an ask if you want us to read those.
Yeah, please interact with this podcast in any way you can.
Please give us validation. We need it.
We are in quarantine. We're sad. Well, I mean, you're not in quarantine, but We're sad.
Yes. So, so then the other ones, so then there's, of course, there's a review by Vixen Shadow. I've seen her. I feel like she is very, I see her, or I think it's her. If I can check their profile again, I want to say they are her, but they also.
But I also feel like, just to be safe, because these people haven't revisited these profiles in maybe over a decade.
Oh yeah, that's
so
true.
We can never assume a person's pronouns.
No.
And that's why I keep slipping and then switching back to they.
Yeah. So anyway, they, that's a good rule of thumb to have. Unless we absolutely know for certain what their pronouns are, ATM, if we like know them personally or whatever. Or we've interacted with them in the past, or we have like a
if we in some way have like some kind of update on who they are as a person and how they are.
Yes. So Vixen Shadow.
Oh my god, that profile pic though. That caught me off guard.
It's a great one. I appreciate it.
What's his name?
For those of you who can't see it, which is all of you.
But they can look it up.
Yeah,
they can look it up.
Encourage you to look it up. It's pretty nice. But Vixen's Shadow, I've seen them a lot, and I think a lot of the comment sections of a lot of these.
They also have a poll.
They have a what?
They also have a poll on their profile. Which story needs an update? Oh, okay. A lot of people do that.
Yeah, and so they always tend to do like the I talk between my OCs in the reviews bit.
And the author's notes, and the author's bio.
Apparently one of the OCs got drugged during church. It says...
What? I didn't read that far.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it for you.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Check your spoilers, Alyssa. Oh my god, after effects of yesterday, we had a little issue at church. You call not being able to stop crying for 30 minutes little? The first word of it was panic, ? As Crystal is saying, we had a panic attack. Too many people. We are still a little freaked out. What? Well, keep moving forward. Oh my god. Okay, based on this, what do you think they took?
Probably, I don't know. Something.
It kind of looks like they... Oh, wait. They couldn't stop crying? Okay, that could be anything, though.
Yeah. Well, that's rough. If that's something that legitimately happened to this person, like, whew. I hope their social anxiety's gotten better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing about reading fanfiction as a hobby is that you slowly just become the author's psychiatrist.
Yeah, right. You start like figuring out like, oh, what sort of things did they have in their mind? But aside
for some reason they're joking that they got an anxiety attack from this story, I guess.
Maybe.
Or that,
I don't know. It's
these
kind of hard to tell what this
always
person is trying to say
here. A perpetual state of like panic and disorientation.
Maybe.
I love how everybody's like, keep moving forward, which the fandom still does, but not quite as much.
No.
Thank God, because I would actually find that really annoying.
Oh no! Don't say that too loudly. We're gonna lose a lot of viewers if you say that. I'm just kidding. It's fine.
I think people are just gonna discover that I'm actually like a huge curmudgeon in real life.
They're gonna be like, no, you aren't a whimsical fairy. Oh no.
No, you aren't cute and happy all the time. Oops. Oops. Don't look at the curtain.
Oh. It's okay. I support your curmudgeonliness. It's fine.
Thank you.
I will be here for your crankiness.
Just that they're so weird.
Most of the other reviews
the fact that the next reviewer is Doodle Girl, I feel like that's still somewhat significant.
Yeah, Doodle Girl is a
all of these were on the same day, too.
Yeah, no, they all posted on the first day it was published.
Which
Um,
means the fandom was like super active
yeah, this was
in
2008 was
2008,
still a big year for the fandom at that point, I think.
especially around March because it's like the anniversary.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Doodle Girl's a big name. I think she has a Tumblr, and I think I saw her pronoun listed as she, I believe.
Okay, cool.
So I know she's still active in fanfiction because I've done
Ooh, do you
I
think
may
do you
or may
think we
not have
could
done
get her
some
on the
research on
show?
these people. Just want to put that out there. Maybe.
Yeah, we try to research people, but because of digital decay, it's always going to be a little bit flawed, and also just because
Yeah.
what people put out online is never necessarily accurate.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think it's lucky because Doodle Girl has an AO3 account and it's also linked to a Tumblr, and she hasn't
Ooh, that's how
changed her
you get
username,
them.
so that's how I was able to track her. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, as far as I can tell, she's still active, but she was definitely a major part of the earlier parts of
Yeah, she
the
was one
fandom.
of those prolific one-shot authors
Yeah, she wrote a
in the
lot.
genfic genre.
Um, she wrote the first, or at least the oldest. I mean, who knows if it was truly the oldest because of digital decay, but like on the archives now, she's the first chapter defector on
Ooh,
FF.net, as far as I know, which I believe is the school report, if I remember correctly.
it's called what?
So the school report, that's her first. So her comment's pretty nice and pretty normal, and most of the other ones are pretty normal too. Although I
Yeah,
do
her
like
comment makes sense, and
this
it's very
one
sweet.
person, Dot, who said, "I absolutely love it. It's to see the three siblings as toddlers. Staples."
Staples.
Like nice. Um yeah, so
Types of
I yeah,
stuff.
so I yeah, so I mostly just wanted to give a shout out to Doodle Girl. I also think Peachy Keen, I've definitely recognized their username. I don't know if I've read any stuff by them. No, they haven't written anything. They're just
Oh, they're just a reader account.
all I'm gonna say is
Oh,
I
it just
looked at
says bye
I,
in their profile.
their profile just says bye.
That's a mood though.
Yeah, no,
They kept
definitely.
everything else, but they just deleted the profile. And I'm guessing maybe it was like one of those super long ones because they joined in
Yeah, maybe.
2006.
I mean, it is possible that Peachy Keen wrote some stuff but then deleted everything.
Yeah, that's definitely possible.
So I might need to do some snooping if I wanted to find out if they written anything.
Anyway, we could go on
Yeah,
and
as you
on
can probably tell, we have a ton to talk about. But
as we have. But
yeah. So those are the comments. So we've talked about the comments. We've talked about the fic itself. Um, Overall thoughts on the whole package.
I have keywords in bold actually.
Oh, tell them.
Cute, short, incredibly boring, has potential, but little character, bare minimum prose.
That sounds pretty solid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like. I feel like it's definitely, it's fine. Like, definitely not the best read I've had reading all these fics, and definitely I feel like dating advice is probably way better.
Yeah, I like reading an author's older fics
Mm.
and then like being able to map out their progression
Yeah.
because you see that with a lot of other authors where like their older fics, well, whether or not it was good or not, usually they've improved like a lot
Mhm.
afterwards. And sometimes it's a shame when like their newest stuff is in like a different category,
What?
so it's not as easy to compare.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think it was, I mean, it's kind of weird because I try to think, like, if I want to be a really harsh critic, it definitely was a first draft level thing. Like, the
Oh,
concept is pretty
definitely.
solid,
I think a lot of
and
these authors don't understand the concept of draft.
yeah. So, like, if I'm being, like, super objective, if I'm putting on my writer's workshop hat,
Hmm.
like, it's definitely first draft material. There's definitely needs to be more like stuff developed, and there's a lot, like, it does the dialogue, like the prose feels very stilted and a lot is in summary, and there's not a lot of time spent in the moments of the characters. There's not a lot of interaction between the characters, which is a big problem. And the
Yeah.
mother especially feels like she's
Tragic.
kind of lacking in her internal world, which is also a problem.
Dramatic.
From a, if I'm gonna just put on my fan fiction evaluation hat,
Yeah.
I'd say that this one's
Because it's a whole different
probably,
context.
it's probably in the better, in like a higher tier, you know? Like,
It's in the second tier.
yeah, like it's like if we're gonna tier it,
Very high up in the second tier, but in the second tier.
yeah, it's definitely, I've definitely read better, but I've also definitely read a lot worse. So it's like,
Definitely.
you know,
The
I mean,
range is
I've
huge.
read, as someone who's read, with the breadth of material that I've read so far, I definitely would consider this like within the better half of the stuff I've read. Yeah, so I guess this was our first podcast. This is the pilot episode.
Yeah, welcome to the pilot.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to this. And we hope that you enjoyed your time. If you have any fics that you, whether they're your fics or ones you remember reading or ones that you've read, and you're like, hey, what's your opinion on this? Feel free to drop those in the comments as well.
We are still mulling over what fic to review next, so you could
I know,
sway
there's
us
just so
very
many
easily
options.
if you wanted.
There's so many, and it's like, what mood are we in? You know, do we want to do something that we think is good? Do we want to do something that we think is terrible? Do we want to do something that is just kind of weird? Do we want to do something that's like long? Do we want to do something short? Do we want to do it just for the comments? You know, there's so many different angles you can take it.
For how small the fandom is, we have a surprising amount of material.
We do.
We will go on for like 100 seasons.
Yeah, totally. So please drop those in those comments, drop in those asks. And also, as always, please, share this around with any people that you think will enjoy it. We would love for this to become, maybe have 2 viewers. That would be nice.
Ooh.
I don't know if we can make the 2.
Don't dream too big, Alyssa. Don't dream too big.
Yeah, I'm trying not to. I know it's risky, but I think it's possible. Thanks again for watching us, and we will catch you all next time.
Yeah, this has been Stranger Than Fiction podcast, the world's only Meet the
Yes.
Hosted by The Rational Dove and The Robinson Way of Life.